8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have the honor of speaking with Brock Blake. How you doing today, Brock?
Good, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for carving out the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All righty. So I want to know, what is your story?
My story. Well, I'm an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur includes some of the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I started my entrepreneurial career right out of college. I won a entrepreneurial competition and won $50,000. It's kind of like the TV show The Apprentice without the Donald Trump saying you're fired and all the glitz and glamour. But there were 100 entrepreneurs. They narrowed it down to 20. And at the end, they selected 5 and gave the 5 of us $50,000 that we could go and start a business. So I was fortunate to be one of those 5. Started a company early on called Funding Universe, where we were connecting entrepreneurs to angel investors, and realized that most business owners are not really going to raise money from an angel or venture capitalist. But most angels or VCs want to see the next, Uber or Twitter or Facebook or these high-flying, tech companies. Most businesses across the U.S. are restaurant owners and landscapers and dry cleaners, and so after a few years of growing that business and trying to make that work, we realized let's shut down Funding Universe and start Lendio, where we were connecting these business owners to banks and lenders and helping them get $25,000 or $50,000, so we launched that in 2011, and we've been growing ever since. And there's been there's so many stories. That's the very, very shortcut version, but there's so many stories in between, and I just love what I do. I love being an entrepreneur. I love helping small business owners. We call it fuel the American dream. You got millions of business owners that have this dream or passion, and we are giving them the capital to help them do it. So that's my story.
When you were younger, like before college, who were you? What kind of person were you?
So I'm the youngest of 6 siblings. So there's 5 boys and 1 girl, and so growing up, man, we always had a ball. We were playing football or basketball in the backyard or soccer, and I ended up playing soccer in college because I just grew up like being the youngest. You're fighting for everything. Everything was a competition. Every conversation turned into a competition, and so. I love that. I love sports growing up. I had a paper out since I was a little kid. I've always been an entrepreneur, trying to sell. I started my own lawn care business where I bought a bunch of scooters and sold them, I had, my parents. My mom is who instilled the drive. She grew up with this single parent household, poor as can be, had to work her entire life since she was a little kid, and really instilled on us this drive. My dad's a people person. He just loves being with people, and and so he's kind of instilled this, treat people the way they want to be treated, and so a great upbringing. I was fortunate to have the parents and the family that I had.
Moving into college, it seems like you're playing soccer in college.
Yeah.
How did that then lead you to entrepreneurship? Like, where did that spark come from? Why did that appeal to you?
Yeah, so in college, it's interesting. I played at Brigham Young University at BYU, and the soccer program isn't. It's a semi-pro league, so it's not an NCAA program, which basically means that none of us had scholarships. So not only did we spend 20 to 30 hours a week, with soccer and training and the weight room and all of that, but we also had all of our studies we had to complete, and we had to work to pay for our school. And so it was just this. It instilled this, like I was juggling so many things at one time, trying to pull it all together and make it work. And that I think is really kind of foundational to who I am as an entrepreneur. Believing I'm going to identify the things that are important to you, and I'm just going to figure out how to make it happen. Oddly enough, I was just talking about this to one of the other former, soccer players, is there's been, I don't know, from that soccer program, there's been a tremendous amount of entrepreneurs that have been widely successful. I'm talking like 20, 25 entrepreneurs. It'd be like crazy to do a case study or documentary on all these entrepreneurs and why they became that way. But I think it was because we didn't have scholarships and we had to just be scrappy to figure out how to make it all work.
I love that. And it seems like those skills of trying to balance everything, trying to be resourceful to figure out how to make that work, trying to manage your time effectively to get everything done. It seems like, that was prime training for entrepreneurship.
Oh, no
prime
question.
Training.
And sometimes, you drop the ball on this or that, and you don't show up for work, or you miss, you do poorly on a test, or practice goes horribly, or whatever. But for me, I was married. I got married my senior year, and so that was too. I felt this responsibility to provide for my wife, and it was definitely prime training, and it was challenging at the time. But I look back on it, and I'm just so grateful for the experiences that I had. Sometimes the most difficult trials and challenges are the ones that shape you the most.
So that adds in a whole nother dynamic of you getting married, because I feel like, and I'm not married, so I'm really going to look to your insight here, but it would seem like, it would appear to me that at that point, that amount of responsibility turns the I should be successful into I must be successful, or I must figure this out. To me, it turns that from a should to a must.
No question. And fortunately, married the love of my life. My wife is amazing, and she's been 100% supportive from day one. She's just all in, believing, kind of saying, you can do this, you can make it happen, and never questioning. Like early on, we went through some tough times, and we maxed out all of our credit cards. She came, when we got married, she brought savings. She brought like $5,000 to $10,000 of savings, and I didn't really have any savings. So I always like to say she was my first angel investor, because she basically, helped fund the business early on. And then I won this $50,000, but then we maxed out credit cards, and we lived in my parents' home for a couple of years. Just during that time when you're eating macaroni and cheese and ramen noodles, trying to make it all work. And she never questioned. And fortunately, we're on a pretty good track record now, and the business is really growing. And so, our lifestyle's improved from that financial standpoint. But she's just been there. She's been a rock from day one. And actually, there was that pressure, but it was also like we were a team. We were going to make this happen together.
I love that. As somebody who's 24 now, I'm always thinking about, I'm thinking about like choices of a life partner, and how important that is, and how profoundly impactful that individual will be to the future of your life. So I'm curious to learn, what were you looking for in a partner? What were you looking for in your partner in crime, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I think first off is someone that shares your same values. That what's important to you when all else is stripped away. Like, what are your values? What do you care about? We're a God-fearing family. We care about people and trying to do it the right way, and we're positive and optimistic, and want to be happy, and we like to travel, and she's she also, so I don't know, it's someone that really shares your same values, someone that I just love being with, if when we go on vacation to Hawaii or wherever, and just someone with that we can just hang out and have fun and enjoy our time together. It was important to me. I mean, I wanted to have a family, and we have 4 kids now, and I wanted someone who cared about that, who wanted to be a mom. My wife is fortunate; she doesn't work, and so she stays home and probably does more work than I do at taking care of 4 kids. But that was important to me. So, I mean, to each person, you have to decide what are the things that you value the most, and base that. It's a heavy decision. Base that decision off. Do your values align? Do you get along? Or and if so, are you committed to it? And because just like being an entrepreneur, as this isn't a marriage show, but marriage is the highest of highs and the lowest lows. It's hard, but it's anything that's hard also brings incredible fulfillment.
I love that. And to me, what's really fascinating and I think very meaningful is that one of the first things you talked about were the values, and that's kind of centric to your answer. And so I'm curious, and you talked about them a little bit. So one could surmise from what we've talked about thus far, but I really want to ask you directly, what are those values that you hold very, very dearly? What are those things that are the most important to you?
So I mean, for me, there's a spiritual component that is really important to me. Like I said, God-fearing man who, believes in a higher power. And so that was, important to me. I think values of my grandpa taught us always to remember who you are, and that basically meant, you got to represent not only yourself but your family with integrity and with character. So that's something that is really important to me. I am someone who believes in service and like it's not all about you. In fact, you find the most joy and satisfaction in life when you're looking outside of yourself and you're looking at others and you're serving and you're figuring out ways to take care of other people, and that's really important to me. And then one of the values, this value of that I've carried with me my whole life, and actually has been the foundation of the values for our company here at Lendio, is this idea of humble hungry. Humble meaning, you're a team player. You're not caught up in yourself. You are open to feedback. You're not always right. All those things. Hungry being, I'm competitive. I want to win. I like goals. You like high five moments and celebrating, and you think big and you're audacious and you're bold, and so those combination of humble and hungry have served me really well in my life, and I'm pretty passionate about those.
That's such an interesting combination of the humble hungry, and something that I often think a lot about that I'd love to get your perspective on is the idea of being content with who you are and happy in who you are, but also still having that drive to go out and improve and to work on yourself and improve yourself and do better. I feel like sometimes it can be kind of difficult to reconcile that. Like, oh, well, if I have to improve, does that mean I'm not good enough now? Or, does that mean I'm unworthy, or that at that point, then I will be worthy? And what is that point? So how do you reconcile this idea of both being happy and fulfilled and enjoying your life now, but also not losing that spark, that edge to keep going and getting better, better, better?
Yeah. So life hacks that I've learned, for me, I think that happiness, that the fulfilling of kind of self-contentment comes from the lack of comparison with others. And so, if people get caught up in especially with social media these days, you get online and it looks like, all these people around me are living this perfect life. They only take a picture of the best things that ever happen, or this amazing trip on the beach or whatever. And then you start to compare yourself to someone else, and that's where you start to put yourself down, and there's some negative feelings towards yourself in that. And I think that if you remove comparison to others and focus on self and comparing yourself to your old self and just constantly trying to be better, that brings this, you're not going to be cocky, but you're going to be like content, and you're going to feel, you're confident. And then I feel like the happiness, so in that case, you're looking just inside yourself. And then the second scenario of happiness is, again, an interesting juxtaposition is now when I'm feeling sorry for myself, that's the exact time when I'm actually need to look outside myself and go serve. Go find someone who's having a worse day than you are, and how can you lift them up? And it could be simple things, but writing them a note, or telling them they look great, or hey, I love your haircut, or maybe it's someone that is in real need, and you can go and reach outside yourself. And the happiest people that I found are people that are not so focused on themselves. So the lack of comparison, and then getting outside yourself and serving.
I love that, and I love the juxtaposition of and kind of jumping on both sides and looking at them and trying to figure them out, because I feel like a lot of people don't actually take the time to think about these things, and so we're just living with it. I mean, we're going about operating, and some decisions are if we're not making them, they're being made for us. So I think it's so critically important to talk about these things, because it could give somebody a code of operation. They could be like, oh, I love that idea, I'm going to implement that in my life. So I'm so glad the conversation has gone this way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your entrepreneurial career a little bit more. Let's talk about when you won that competition and you won that $50,000. How did you actually do that? Like, what were the steps you took to go in, identify what you needed to do for that, and win it?
Yeah, so this was an 8-week boot camp, and so during those 8 weeks, we had to go raise money. So we had to raise $5,000, which at the time is like, who am I going to go find $5,000 from? We had to put together an event, a networking competition. We had to, or a networking event. We had to do a sales competition where we were trying to sell a product that we weren't familiar with. And so, every single week we were going through these competitions, and then each week we also went through a 4-hour kind of entrepreneur training class where they brought in all these entrepreneurs, all these experts, and taught us, and it was an incredible experience. And at the end, basically every single week you basically were scored based on how you did, and then there was a peer review, so all 20 would vote on other people. You couldn't vote for yourself. And then the program kind of directors had a kind of a vote, and at the end, the individuals with the most points or whatever, I can't remember exactly, were the winners. And so I was extremely fortunate, because that money allowed me, it wasn't based on a certain business plan. It was, hey, here's $50,000. Why don't you go evaluate the market and try and decide what you want to do? And so I could use that in any way I wanted. I could start a business. I could buy a business. There were different things like that and so I used that money to evaluate a bunch of different opportunities and decided to launch Funding Universe.
And what specifically about that business model stuck out to you so much? Like, why, of all the other business models, of all the other routes that you could have gone, why did that one really call to you?
Yeah, so I almost bought an ice cream retail shop that I was going to franchise. I almost started this other guy idea. We were going to partner on a calendar that was basically, honestly, what Google Calendar is today. That was the concept. It was a great idea. And I looked at a few others. And the reason why I decided to go with Funding Universe is because as I was going out and talking to business owners and trying to decide what to do, it seemed like the consistent theme with every business owner that I spoke to was that they needed access to capital. You know, they were running their business, they're a restaurant owner, and they were juggling, you know, so many things, trying to own that restaurant or that retail shop or whatever it was. They weren't experts at getting a loan. And as I talked to them, I'd say, hey, what's your biggest challenge? And almost every single time it was, I don't know how to get access to capital. I don't know how to raise money. Man, if I could use $100,000, it would make a huge impact on my business. And so because of the consistency and the repetition of how often I heard that, I just felt like there was a great opportunity to go and solve that problem.
So you actually went out into the community and you started asking people, hey, what do you need help with? You know, what are you struggling with?
Yep, exactly.
That's brilliant. That's so, because that's the best market research there is. I mean, people are saying, hey, I literally cannot do this thing. Please help. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think that sometimes as entrepreneurs, you know, we come up with some idea, and the only people we ask to get feedback from are our closest friends and family. You know, and what are our closest friends and family going to say? They're always, 95% of the time, they're going to tell you whatever the idea is. You know, I want to go start a cold cereal restaurant. Oh, that's a brilliant idea. Everyone eats cold cereal, you know, and so people are just going to tell you what you want to hear. And that's not the critical feedback you need to be able to start a business. You need to go out and talk to strangers and people that have no interest in or don't even really know you and have no bias or benefit from telling you what you want to hear. And then you can really, truly understand the market you're trying to serve.
That's fantastic. So once you started that and you started to see that most entrepreneurs are just, I believe you said that they're just not really a good match for an angel or a VC. When was that turning point to where you said, okay, I need to do something else? Like what was that defining moment there?
Yeah. So we had built up Funding Universe up to about 10 million in revenue. And what I realized is that, you know, a lot of the customers that came to us looking for financing, a very high percentage, I'm talking like 90% of them, were actually never going to raise money from an angel investor or venture capitalist. As I mentioned, these are Main Street businesses. They don't need $1 million or $500,000. They might need $25,000. And so, you know, to try and build a business where 90% of your customers aren't a good fit, it was just like, it wasn't the right business model. So we started thinking on nights and weekends, you know, how can we serve that customer base? And in February 2011, we started building up, you know, this concept around Lendio. And in February 2011, we shut down Funding Universe, going from $1 million of revenue a month to zero overnight. Went from 75 employees down to about 8, and basically started over with conviction. We knew that the demand for capital was high because we saw that, you know, many business owners were coming in asking for financing, and so we just thought if we can switch to this debt model, helping business owners, you know, connect them to banks and credit unions and other lenders, we feel like that, you know, that will be a lot more scalable, and we'll be able to serve that, you know, much larger, that 90%. And so that was painful, that transition, going from $1 million in revenue a month to zero. Way more painful than we could have ever thought or planned. But we had conviction around Lendio. Unfortunately, you know, now 8 years later, the decision has definitely paid off.
Did y'all ever consider like expanding what Funding could do, and like moving your customer base over to a more debt driven model? Like what were really the different points of discussion as far as why you shut it down and started something completely new?
Yeah, the reason why is because we had a customer base, a stream of customers that were coming to us on the funding universe side. Again, the majority of those looking for debt financing. And so what we wanted to do is kind of redirect that customer base to Lendio. And so there wasn't like an ability to go and, we didn't have the financial resources to say, okay, let's try and keep this one running over here and go and do this one. And, a lot of people have asked me, well, why didn't you sell it, or why didn't you? And maybe there could have been other routes. Although, we, even today, I'm not sure today I would have done it differently. There was a lot of pain, but I do feel like it gave us the best chance of being successful with the new, with Lendio.
So once you did start Lendio, what were those actionable steps? How did you grow it to the amazing business that it is as of, August of 2019?
Yeah. So, again, I like to say we probably made every mistake in the book in my entrepreneurial career. And I'm not kidding. And the key is you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but how do you respond in a way where you don't make the same mistake twice? And how do you do that fast so your rate of learning is accelerated? So our path was, first off, we had this customer base of small business owners coming in. We had to go out and build relationships with lenders. So that was the first few years was, let's go get out on the street and start talking to banks and tell them, hey, we've got this stream of customers. They're looking for a loan. Would you like to lend to them, and make that happen? That was a lot harder than I expected it to be. Fortunately, though, once you get a bank on board or a lender on board, they stay with you for a really long time. And so we've pretty much not really lost any banks. And then, for us, there was this learning curve of, in business lending, there's lots of different loan products. It's not just one loan product you're trying to do over and over and over again. There's lines of credit, and there's term loans, and there's SBA loans and credit cards. And so we had to go through this learning curve of, for each product, what are the data points that we need to pull together to know if that business owner is going to get funded. So we had to learn, okay, we got to pull bank data, and we've got to pull credit, and we need to look at their tax returns, and we need to ask this question and that question, and revenue and financials. And so there was this process of, how do you even fund a loan? Like, how do you do that? At first, we started doing lead gen, where business owner would come in, they'd sign up, we'd qualify it, we'd send it off to 3 or 4 lenders, and then, we got paid, whether the loan funded or not. I never loved that model because I don't love the customer experience. The borrower's getting, calls from different lenders and saying, and so the borrower is having to handle that whole customer interaction. In 2014, we actually changed the model where we handle the entire customer experience. The lender actually can't reach out to the borrower, and we'll help that borrower navigate the different lenders and which options they have. When we changed that, going from lead gen to kind of the what we call marketplace and changing that customer experience, that's when our business has really taken off. And now we just barely crossed $1.5 billion of loans on our platform, over 80,000 transactions on our platform, and so it's been a ride going through that learning curve.
As you've grown and developed these different businesses, and you've gone through this journey and all these different things that you've done, what have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned that you wish you knew way back in the day?
Yeah, one of the things that we learned early on, and again from making mistakes, is we learned that it all starts with customer experience. do you have a product or service that fills a customer need, and are you doing it in a way where the customer is a raving fan, where they will tell their friends about it and they'll refer customers to you? Will they come back to you again and again and again because the first experience was great? That lesson was extremely valuable. It's like when you nail that, everything else starts to come together. That's one. Two, I really believe in building an amazing culture. And I feel like if you take care of your team members, they will take care of your customers. And so, our culture is based off of, again, humble, hungry. We hire and fire to humble and hungry in those attributes. But we, like we talked about earlier around finding a life partner, we build our culture based off of values. And we want people that share those same values, that are passionate about what we do. And we learned that the hard way. Early on, you're just kind of hiring who you can get and the talent you can get, and kind of there's not really this screening mechanism of, I'm going to hire people that share my same values. Once we've been able to do that, the team we have is just incredible, amazing talent. And we definitely hire and fire to those values. I don't know. There's so many mistakes I've made along the way. I learned one time I ran out of money and I couldn't make payroll. That's a whole story, and I can tell. There's learning experiences there. We've done made bad decisions that affected employees, or made bad decisions around we're going to invest in a certain product and it didn't work out, and a lot of. I think we've messed, like I said, I think I've made every mistake in the book.
Along that same journey, learning those lessons, how have you changed as an individual?
Well, you'd like to think that you're a lot more wise than I was when I first started being a young entrepreneur. One of the things that's changed for me is when I was a young entrepreneur, I literally, you go and you read all these magazine articles and you see these people on the front cover of Inc. or Forbes or Entrepreneur or whatever it is, and you think, I'm going to do that. I'm going to build a business. I'm going to sell it in a year. I'm going to ride off in the sunset in a Lamborghini, and everything's going to be great. And you just kind of have these dreams. And so at first I was building a business to sell it, because I was just thinking about that moment. And over time, I've completely changed my passion for building a business. Now I'm not building a business to sell it. I'm building a business that I hope will be a 100-year business. I want to make long-term decisions. I want to build a business that is so valuable, that is serving our customers, where people love coming to work every day. And guess what? I believe that if I do that, someone will come and give us an offer we can't refuse. But that's not what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for build a great business and serve your customers well, take good care of your employees, and those things. And as long as I'm having fun, and as long as I'm not bored or I'm not tired or whatever, I'm going to keep doing that. And I love what I do.
I love the idea of taking the long-term approach, and that's something that I vehemently believe in, because and I was just speaking at a conference not too long ago, and we were talking about working with people and taking the long-term approach to working with people. And I think that is absolutely the best way to do business, because if you're going for the short term, for example, let's say I was trying to sell a widget to somebody, right? And that was my only goal, and I was just thinking very short term and transactionally. Well, I may fail at selling the widget, and then the relationship's broken, and there's nothing else you can do at that point, right? Because of the thinking. But if instead I go about building the relationship, then they can be a customer for many, many, many widgets, or they could be a partner and help me sell widgets, or I can help them sell whatever they're selling, or an advisor or mentor, anything and everything. So I love that long-term approach. And, I try to preach that all the time. So I'm so glad that that the conversation went there. Now, what really shifted to where you thought that way? Like, where did that thought process come from?
I think that you go through a learning curve where it's trial and error. You try some of these short-term decisions. I'm going to make this decision because it will help drive revenue goals today. And yeah, you might hit your revenue goal today, or you might accomplish whatever that is. But then the next day you have to recreate the wheel again. And it's actually, I guess it's just that pain of making short-term decisions and realizing that didn't work that well for me. Like, maybe that day we won, but in the long run we're not going to win. And then also seeing the benefit of, okay, I'm going to go about this. I'm going to take the long-term approach. It's going to take me longer to make it happen. I might miss out on some short-term rewards, but in the long run, you're so much better. Your foundation is better. The company morale is better because people see that. People recognize, like, if you say you're going to be long-term focused, or you have these values, and then you go out and act differently than what your stated values are, now you lose all credibility. You're now a hypocrite. And so it is just basically trying to do what we said we were going to do. So I think it's just that learning curve of, who are we really? What are the values we're built off of? Trial and error. What are the mistakes we made? And what do we think? How do we think long term? What are we really trying to build here? And then act to make that happen.
I love that. So now you're here, and we talked a little bit about how you got here and where you actually are. But let's talk about where you want to go. Like, what do you see as far as the future for your business, for yourself, for your family?
Yeah, so for Lendio, I mean, we feel like we're just getting started. This is an enormous market. There's millions of small business owners out there that need help getting access to capital. We're excited about expanding the brand and trying, being kind of a household name. And we are the largest marketplace in the U.S., but we feel like we're just scratching the surface on that. We also just, part of building a relationship with our small business owners is as we were talking to a lot of our business owners, many of them said, and we were looking at their financials, and we were like, man, your financials are kind of a mess, because they're so busy trying to run their business, they don't have time to become a bookkeeper or an accountant or whatever. And we started doing some surveys and realized that 70% of our customers don't have any really good bookkeeping or accounting. And so we just announced a few weeks ago the acquisition of a cash flow bookkeeping technology we're calling Sunrise. And basically what that allows us to do when a business owner comes in, they need a loan. Hey, we also identified you probably need help with your financials. We have a free product and an upgrade product and whatnot. So I'm really excited about the ability to combine lending. Let's help you get a loan when you need it, but when you don't need a loan, let's help you manage your finances. And so to help you be a better entrepreneur. Like, I get super passionate about that. And so, for the future, I see one day where a business owner, it's not there yet. The lender, between lender technology and other things, it's just not there yet. But I see a day where I call it an always-on application, where a business owner never really has to go and apply and fill out an application. Like today, there's a pain in doing that, and giving all the information. What if you had enough data on that business owner that it's always on? At any time they need it, they can just go to their mobile and say, I need $20,000, click here. And, they get it. Or, I need to buy a piece of equipment, boom, I need it. And because we already have visibility into their financials and so I get really excited about that concept, and being able to take our business to be able to do that, to help that business owner when they need it most.
That's fantastic. And what about for yourself and for your family?
I'm passionate about leaving a legacy. I want to build a great business that serves the community. If there's a financial, payday at the end of that rainbow, I want to be able to leave a legacy. I want to be able to do good in the community. I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to serve people. I want to be able to invest in other businesses and kind of have this force multiplier effect. And I want to, not for any kind of promotion, but I see these other entrepreneurs that have done really well, and I see some that take it and it's extremely kind of selfish and all about me, and I'm going to have the biggest house on the top of the hill and buy all these fancy cars. And I mean, there's a place for that. But also I see the ones that are, trying to advance the cause of cancer. My mother passed away of cancer, and I'm passionate about trying to solve for that, or just being able to use that money to do good. I feel like if you generate an income, you now have this stewardship. You are over this income, and what can you do with it? How can you help people? What problems need to be solved? And I'll just share one. I listened to Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin, speak one time, and I loved this concept. He said, in life, you are first and foremost trying to figure out, take care of yourself. Like, I'm eating right, and I'm exercising, and I'm in a good spot. And then all of a sudden you expand your circle of influence, and now you're starting. Maybe it's your family. Okay, now I got to make sure I got taking good care of my family. And then, expand your circle of influence, and now you're looking at your neighborhood. And, are you helping the lady on the elderly lady down the street, and taking good care of them? And then you're expanding to your community, and then your state, and then your nation. And he said, now I'm in a situation where, people know who I am. I've made enough money. I'm actually working on world problems. And he mentioned some of the world problems that he's trying to solve, and he's going to space, and he's doing all these crazy things, and I'm like, I just love that. That's so cool, that people who just, it's not just about them.
That's fantastic. Hearing you say that, it reminds me a lot of John D. Rockefeller. I'd like to study successful people, and around roughly his 50s, partially because of his health, but a lot of his health concerns were because of so much stress from running Standard Oil, and he actually switched predominantly to philanthropy, and he started focusing not as much on making money, but on spending it and investing it and doing good in the world. And I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that, and I think the more people that think like we do, and the people we've been talking about, I think that makes for a better world. And we're all part of humanity. Like we're all humans. So at the end of the day, it really does help everybody, and makes for a better world. So
no question.
So Brock, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing some of your precious time with me today. It's been very special, and I just want to thank you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I love what you're doing. I appreciate the show and all the stories that you're telling and that deserve to be told. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So just have one more question for you, then we'll wrap it on up. I'm 24, and I want to ask from my perspective specifically, and I want to get your perspective specifically. But what question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Well, along these same themes, for this show, the same question I would have for every show, but what's it like being an entrepreneur and trying to have a family? I think that there are millions of entrepreneurs out there that are juggling, trying to be the best dad they can be, or the best mom they can be, or the best spouse they can be, or the best partner they can be, or whatever their scenario is. but it's hard because you feel like day to day, man. I have at Lendio, we have 225 employees that are all kind of calling for your time, and you have a board, and you have these partnerships, and you're trying to run a business, and yet I care about. I've got a son who's 13 and 3 girls, 12 and 10 and 5, and they have their dance recitals and they have their soccer games, and I'm helping to coach football, and that. I think it's a real life challenge that one day, when I was early on in my career, I was trying to raise money from a venture capitalist. The venture capitalist, and he asked me about myself, and I said, "Hey, father, husband, really passionate about being a dad." He said, "You need to choose. You're either going to be." I've never seen someone be a successful CEO and build a great business and be a great dad. So you need to choose. And in that moment, right then and there, I knew that guy was not the right partner for me. And I've also remembered that conversation from day one. And I'm set to prove him wrong. And I'm not a great CEO and a great father yet, but that's my mission in life, is to be both. And I'm striving to do that. But it's a balance.
Well, again, Brock, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and to everybody who's watching and listening, I want to thank y'all very, very much. Your time is very valuable too, so I'm grateful that y'all choose to share it with us today and stick with us all the way till the end. So thank you very much. I love y'all. Y'all are the reason that I do this show. So thank you, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care now.